Kay Falcha. Welcome to Irish Granny Ellen. This is a continuation of the previous videos that I've made about Buddhism. And it occurred to me that we really never talked about the word Buddha, who, what, when. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and then a bit about meditation. So the Buddha was actually an Indian prince who went on a spiritual journey. He lived around 563 to 483 BC. The word Buddha, I believe, means the enlightened one. He was also known as the Bhagavan, as in Bhagavad Gita, the Blessed One. His real name was Siddhartha Gautama. Who knows how I'm pronouncing any of this stuff? He is featured as the subject of a book by Hermann Hesse, Siddhartha, which we had to read in high school, and it was really hard. It's a very small book, and it's not hard, an introduction to novel ideas. Anyway, for me at the time. Here's the very basic story of how Siddhartha the Buddha became the Buddha. Fortune tellers predicted that at his birth, that he would leave home when he learned about sickness, sorrow, and death. So just a little extra information. In India, when somebody gets pregnant and when a baby is born, and in all of life's big moments, in that culture, they usually consult an astrologer. Families have their personal family astrologer. So this wasn't unusual, but his father was a wealthy prince, and he was very upset that he think his son would leave home. And so he tried to shield Siddhartha from sorrow, suffering, and death, sickness, by putting him in a palace way up high on a high story. And the rooms were as beautiful as heaven. And the story goes, this reminds me a little of Rapunzel. The story goes that he was isolated from the suffering of the world. All his desires were met. Eventually, he married a princess, and that was all I could find. He married a princess. Apparently, she had no name other than princess. And they had a son, Rahula. One day, he overheard some women talking about some beautiful trees, and he got curious, and he asked his father. Now it's interesting because he's a married man with a son, but he asked his father if he could go look at this grove of beautiful trees. But his father reluctantly said yes, but first his father commissioned soldiers to go ahead of Siddhartha and clear the way of anything that resembled sorrow, suffering, illness, death. So Siddhartha went and saw the tree, but his father's soldiers didn't do a perfect job, and there was one very old man sitting somewhere on his path. And this is the first time he'd ever seen anybody old. And he asked the soldier, "What's wrong with that person?" And the soldier said, "Well, he's old." And he had to explain aging and sickness and death to Siddhartha, and this came as a gigantic shock. And he returned to the palace completely disillusioned about the perfection of the world. He lost all interest in life's pleasures, and all he could think about was sorrow, sickness, and death. And he wanted to do something about them or something in his life, but he really didn't know what. He saw a sick man. This was further confirmation. Eventually, he saw a corpse, and this was another big shock. And finally, he saw a ragged religious beggar who told him, "I am terrified of sorrow and sickness and death, so I wander intent on the goal of achieving a blessed state in which they don't exist. And all I do is I accept alms to survive, to eat. That's all I do." And so Siddhartha realized that he'd have to do the same thing. He'd have to leave the palace and wander in search of enlightenment. So he left his son behind with his father as the heir, and he took only a robe, sandals, and a bowl to beg with and to eat from. He was 29 years old. So first he went to study Hinduism, and just to be clear, this is his path through spiritual enlightenment. It's different for everybody. This is not a critique of Hinduism. This is just the course of his story. So he studied with gurus. The Hindus have a pantheon of many gods. They believe the world is an illusion. And he studied with gurus, an assortment of gurus, teachers, for 6 years. And he agreed with a lot of what Hinduism had to offer. He believed that the world was a place of misery. He believed in reincarnation, and he believed in the vicissitudes of karma, how karma can be balanced and how you can affect your own karma. And Siddhartha realized that his life of self-denial was becoming torture. I found this little book, and I think it might even be a children's book. I'm not entirely sure, but it has a picture in it of a statue of Siddhartha during this time when he was nothing but skin and bones. That's pretty scary. So he realized that he was going to die if he continued this path of self-denial, that it was only hurting him physically, and he wasn't becoming more enlightened. His mind was becoming dull from starvation. So he believed that the Hindu way was not the right way for him. So he decided to seek within his own mind, and he turned to meditation, which required great concentration, and it necessitates clearing your mind of your thoughts. And in deep meditation, he began to remember his past lives. He could read the past lives of other people, and he saw the truths that became inherent in the philosophy of Buddhism later, and was considered enlightened at the age of 35. So let's go back a little here, and that's basically, really basically, the story of the Buddha. But let's talk a little bit about the historical origins of Buddhism in general. So I gave you the dates, 563 to 483 BC. This is the Iron Age, the first millennia BC in India. And this is really during the formation of the first real urban areas, city building. And the people went from ancient scriptures, the oldest Sanskrit information that we have, called the Vedas, proceeded through to the Upanishads, and eventually came out with these philosophies. There is not a real collection of Buddhist scriptures that are written down, but these are ancient Indian Sanskrit texts that the tradition evolved from. And from what's called the Sramana, which rejected the authority of the Vedas and the Upanishads, comes Buddhism, Jainism, and Ajivika, and I don't even know what that is, but it's another philosophical point of view. So this is a complicated evolution that I researched and decided that I was going to mispronounce about 70 million words and really not be able to clearly explain because it's very complicated. So this is a gloss over, and you certainly are welcome to look more into this if it appeals to you. Very complicated evolution of the branches of Buddhism, and there's not even agreement amongst the different branches. It's just not well understood. But it spread throughout China and Southeast Asia along the Silk Road, as many things did. And it went from India to Tibet and Mongolia, from India to Iran and China, and from there to the rest of Asia. The Dalai Lama is the titular spiritual leader of Tibetan Buddhism. He's believed to be the reincarnation of the Bodhisattva of compassion. And this is the individual who delays nirvana, does not go to the place of perfect enlightenment intentionally to stay and help other people. He's one of a line of enlightened beings. So today there are about 3.5 million Buddhists in the United States. 40% of them are in California. Don't laugh. I thought that was great. Zen, which everybody's heard, is a school of Mahayana Buddhism, which emphasizes meditation as the path to enlightenment. So, throwing the term meditation around quite a bit, let's talk about meditation, also known as samadhi. Samadhi leads to the attainment, well, meditation leads to the attainment of samadhi. It's a calm, undistracted, unified, and concentrated state of awareness. It's a one-pointedness of mind on the object to be investigated. So this takes time and quiet and introspection and a sort of weirdly relinquishing to discipline. It sounds contradictory, but you give yourself over to the discipline of clearing your mind. Dhyana, Dhyana, is a state of perfect equanimity and awareness that's reached through focused mental training. It aids in maintaining a calm mind and avoiding the disturbance of this calm mind by mindfulness. So really, when new agey type people talk about mindfulness, they're referring to ancient Buddhist tradition. Mindfulness of disturbing thoughts and feelings. So be aware that you don't want to allow those, that you don't fight them, you let them pass. There are Buddhist texts, and I believe I wrote the name of them down. I wrote this phrase down and I didn't make it clear to myself. So if I'm wrong, I'm sure somebody will tell me. Lama Shira Das, Buddhist texts describing meditative methodologies, and they are some of the earliest. This set is some of the earliest that still exist, but there's reason to believe that meditation was practiced much earlier, maybe not written about for a very long time. There's no agreement about the origin. Some experts say it was invented by Buddhists. Others argue the Buddhists learned it from earlier sources. There's no consensus. But Buddhism put a new focus and interpretation on meditation. What's unique to Buddhism is the theory of liberation. This is not like Hinduism, and it's not like Jainism. In Buddhism, you don't have a soul. And there are two basic goals of meditation: to calm your mind and to get critical insight. And some regard these two goals as indicative of tension between the ancient Buddhist traditions. So I think what that's saying is that Buddhism splintered into a whole lot of different traditions because they didn't agree on these things. Some scholars see them as complementary to one another. There are I'm going to do my best, the Brahma Vinharas, which are the virtues for meditation that help you to be reborn in the heavenly realm. They're considered characteristic of the deity Brahma and his heavenly abode. And so what are they? Loving kindness, compassion, empathetic joy, which means you be happy because others are happy, and equanimity, serenity. These all sound remarkably, Sermon on the Mount-ish. And I find that very encouraging. Once again, I have to make it clear I'm not espousing Christianity, but having learned about that, it rings a bell when I read it in Buddhism and in many other places. In some traditions, the meditator focuses on images and symbols of deities to cultivate calm and insight. That's Tantric Buddhism. Tibetan Buddhism uses unique tantric techniques like mantras. You chant a mantra. Buddhism avoids ignorance as the main source of dukkha and samsara. You don't want to be ignorant, you want to be awakened, to overcome ignorance by contemplation, mindfulness. And you want to achieve wisdom and dispassion. I love that word. It's a disconnection from overwhelming emotion. Wisdom is the knowledge of the impermanence of the non-self, of karma, impermanence, wisdom of the non-self, wisdom of karma, and wisdom of rebirth. Faith, sadha, must be balanced by wisdom in preparation for meditation. It's achieved through devotional practices. Now, keep in mind that all these different forms of Buddhism have different approaches. Mantras, yoga, what were the other things? Chanting, images of deities. Some believe in the practice of using devotional objects like either prayer or chanting, or making offerings, or doing pilgrimages. And often this is done in groups. They practice vegetarianism because ahimsa, the philosophy of non-harming. They don't want to kill animals. And monks are allowed to eat meat when it's given to them because they don't work, they don't buy their food. They only eat what's given to them, and it's a waste. It's wrong to waste it. So if somebody gives you meat and you haven't eaten, you can go ahead and eat it, and it's not an offense against ahimsa, or you can give it to somebody else. The Buddha himself called the meat trade unethical. This is much debated, don't we know it? Much debated at my house for a very long time. Buddhism began as an oral tradition, and the first texts came 400 years after the death of Buddha. They showed up in Sri Lanka. The earliest texts were palm leaf manuscripts, which sounds funny until you think, well, papyrus and early paper's made from wood pulp and fabric pulp, so nothing that unusual about it. Also, the earliest writings were in temple carvings. Like all major Indian religions, there's no consensus about a common scripture. There's a vast amount of writing claimed by various different groups. There's no one central writing, and each Buddhist tradition has its own texts. There are approximately, get those, 40,000 manuscripts found in a Chinese cave in 1900, and that's just that one tradition. Some are Tripitakas, Mahayana Sutras, and Tantras, so it's this big assortment. So that's what I learned about Buddhism. I think we touched in these last four, including today, last four videos, pretty much touched on the major points. So many different flavors of Buddhism, different practices, different traditions, depending on what part of the world you come from, depending on what philosophy version of Buddhism you espouse. But they all have that central code of ethical behavior. They argue about, when they do argue, they argue about, well, they do argue about some big things like whether or not you have a soul. And if you haven't seen it, go back and check out my video I made with Ali of Heart and Soul Connected. She is a Buddhist, and she helped clarify some questions that I had. And if you would like guidance in meditating, I would recommend Denise Siegel has been doing meditations, guided meditations on her channel. And there's a great meditation channel for free on YouTube. It's called Pura, P-U-R-A, Rasa, R-A-S-A. And it's a young woman with a very soothing voice. Some of them are longer than others. She has all sorts. She has them classified into what you might want to meditate for, what your purpose is. It's a great way to try to relax, to go to sleep, or maybe dissociate a little from the material world. So that's all I have. And this went shorter than I thought it was going to. Sorry, this is late. I had company. My daughter, my granddaughter, my son-in-law were here. Just, a little pit stop on their way through town, but it was really good to see them. And I think that's everything. Oh, thank you if you've become a member. Some interesting things over there on the membership. 99 cents. I'm urging it not because of the 99 cents, but because I really do think that people enjoyed what I used to do, and it's still there behind the paywall. So maybe check it out 1 month for 99 cents and decide, And personal consultations, my email will be down below. Questions for Ask Your Irish Granny on Substack. I haven't had very many questions lately. I've been forced to give my opinions about things. I've been putting more controversial videos over there because there's less censorship than on YouTube. So almost all the time when I make a video with Denise, I have to put it over there. Frequently when I make a video with Deborah Lupien, I kind of have to put it over there. So don't feel like those things are not happening. You just have to go one more step. And I would recommend, there is an app for your phone. I don't have an iPhone, so maybe it works better on an iPhone than on my cheap little phone. But I like it on the laptop. But just go to Substack, go to Ask Your Irish Granny, and then go to town. Thank you very much. Thank you for returning. Be sure you're subscribed. Thank you for joining membership. Appreciate the comments. Give me a thumbs up so that we can get all this information out there. And I am recording again next week with Larry Jordan about Marilyn Monroe. And I think we're going to hang on to it until the anniversary of her death. So stay tuned for that. And that's it. So in the meantime, thank you very much, and slán go fóill, sláinte.